Alex Jones pays his own wife $15,000 a month, as Sandy Hook families are yet to see a dime from him. And what's also crazy, apparently he's spending on personal expenses alone close to $100,000, like about $93,000. And that's just personal expenses. That's not like legal fees, that's not like anything else. It's just personal expenses. So let's check this out. So Alex Jones' personal spending is frustrating families who are trying to collect on the 1.5 billion in judgments against him for calling the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting a hoax. The conspiracy theorist and InfoWars host has been paying his own wife, Erica Wuff Jones, $15,000 a month, according to the most recent spending report he filed in his bankruptcy case. Payouts called fraudulent transfers by lawyers for some of the school victims' families, but the shooting victims' families. Jones says they're required under a prenuptial agreement, and in July, Jones spent $7,900 on housekeeping. No offense to me, I would be so disturbed spending this type of money on housekeeping. But you got to keep in mind is like the property that he owns in terms of like his like main home is probably like a multi-million dollar property or something like that. It's like, man, to spend that much on like housekeeping, like I'm pretty certain that has not, like nothing to do with like landscaping. It's just like straight up cleaning the house, etc. How big is your home? Like, how big is your home to be justifying a $7,900 housekeeping tab? He dished out more than $6,300 for meals and entertainment, not including groceries, which totaled nearly $3,400 or roughly $850 per week. See, like that seems pretty crazy to me. So, wow. $6,300 for meals and entertainment. Huh. So, what's that per month? Wait, hold on. Tools, calculator. 6,300 per month times 12 months. So per year for like entertainment and meals, right? He would be spending about $75,600. That's crazy. Now for the housekeeping, right? Say that's the same rate basically per month. He's spending about $94,800 per year on just housekeeping. And then groceries, which was 3,400 per month, so times 12. So he spends about $40,800 in groceries a year. Like that is the same amount of money that like probably professional bodybuilders eat. You know, the people that are like pretty much have to be like 300 plus pounds and like stabbing themselves with like steroids and whatnot. It's like that is so much money. Like I don't know if I ever got to the point to make like absurd money. Like I don't know if I could like mentally justify spending this type of money. Like unless it's like purely like a quality of life thing, like it would just be so hard for me to like fathom spending this type of money. So he has a second home, his Texas lake house, cost him nearly $6,700 that month, including maintenance and property taxes, while his vehicles and boats sapped another $5,600, including insurance, maintenance, and fuel. Yeah, boats are pretty expensive. Like, if you do not like to spend money, you should probably never get a boat. But also, it's kind of crazy too. Like, a lot of his expenses might also just be like property taxes, because what many people may not know, I believe Alex Jones lives in Texas. And Texas, I believe, either has or has one of the highest property taxes in the United States. So, like, let's say if he has like a $1 million home and a bunch of other properties too, the amount of taxes alone that he's paying per month is probably a huge amount. Let's see. So his total personal expenses for July topped $93,000, up from nearly $75,000 in April, not including legal fees and other costs for his court cases, according to bankruptcy filings. The thing is, like, even making the type of money that he is, right? I don't think there's physically a possible way that he could ever pay the amount of money that they want him to pay. Let's see. So, end quotes. It is disturbing that Alex Jones continues to spend money on excessive household expenditures and his extravagant lifestyle when that money rightfully belongs to the families he spent years tormenting, said Christopher Mattei, a Connecticut lawyer for the families. The thing is, like, in my opinion, the way that this whole court situation like concluded, it was so over the top in terms of like what was determined to be the right amount for this. Like, if he basically defamed people, right? I could understand potentially paying, who knows, if he's bringing in a few $1 million per month, times that to a year or whatever, who knows, maybe he's bringing like 50 million, 30 million. Maybe you could justify having like a settlement of a few $1 million to the families, but like they're wanting like billion. At I think actually they were trying to get trillion. So it's like hold on. Alex Jones trillion. Yeah, so like they wanted him to like pay like literally like close to $3 trillion, right? Like, do people even like realize just how freaking insane that actually is? Like, that is more money than the majority of nations in terms of like their GDP. As the families are increasingly concerned and will continue to contest these matters in courts. In an August 29th court filing, the lawyers for the families said that if Jones doesn't reduce his personal expenses to a reasonable level, they will ask the judge to bar him from further waste of estate assets, appoint a trustee to oversee his spending, or dismiss the bankruptcy case. On his InfoWars show Tuesday, Jones said he's not doing anything wrong. If anything, I like to go to nice restaurants. That is my deal. I like to go on a couple of nice vacations a year. But I think I pretty much have earned that in this fight, he said, urging his audience to donate money for his legal expenses. So Sandy Hook families won nearly the 1.5 billion in judgments against Jones last year in lawsuits over repeated promotion of a false theory that the school shooting that killed 20 first graders and 6 educators in Newton, Connecticut never happened. Relatives of the victims testified at the trials about being harassed and threatened by Jones believers, who sent threats and even confronted the grieving families in person, accusing them of being crisis actors whose children never existed. Collecting the astronomical sum, though, is proving to be a long battle. When Jones filed for bankruptcy, it put a hold on the family's efforts to collect the 1.5 billion in state courts as a federal bankruptcy court judge decides how much money Jones can actually pay his creditors. Lawyers for the families have said in court that it has been difficult for them to track Jones' finances because of the numerous companies he owns and multiple deals among those corporate entities. Meanwhile, Jones is still broadcasting. Now, here's the thing that like many people don't really understand. Like, depending on like your business structure and like a lot of these businesses, like how they're structured, you could have like multiple layers of protection so that you personally may not be really affected, but your companies might be affected. But if there's a company behind that company, you're not really going to be affected. Like, for example, I've seen how one person structured their business where basically they had one business for like a specific product that they were selling that then sent that money to like this other company behind it, which then invested that money into a trust, and that trust basically held all the funds from like multiple different products or other companies that this person had because they were making like I think like a few $1 million like per year or whatever, like super high margin business, etc. But they did that because they were also kind of like a public figure in a way, so they were trying to protect themselves. But it's kind of interesting, right? Because, like, for example, I heard that, like, let's say that you were to get into real estate and you were doing it for like a few $1 million, right? So, like, let's say that you had $5 million as an example to put into real estate in terms of like rental properties. To protect yourself, what you might want to do or potentially look into doing is creating like an LLC that will hold those houses worth about $5 million so that let's say that you were to get hit by like a car or something, you still got those assets basically protected that are not really connected to you personally. So like if you were causing it like a car accident, yeah, you might get sued, but pretty much all they're going to get is like the car insurance amount. You won't be like getting sued for like the 5 million that you have invested that is in like rental properties because that is technically owned by a company. It's pretty much just like moving money around with like a little bit of protection around that money. But I mean, like a lot of people with like a really high net worth do that sort of stuff. Like if you're someone who's only making like 50K a year, maybe only 100K a year, it's not really that worth it to you. But if you're someone who's got like millions and millions of dollars worth of assets, it might be worth it for you to do. Because then you could also probably have like a stronger level of privacy too if you're like a multi-millionaire. Like for example, I think like billionaires don't put anything in their own name. They put it into like the ownership of like some sort of like trust or holding company that just holds all this stuff. So you basically have complete control over it, but you have the privacy of not having you specifically linked to that property. Let's see. So Jones is still broadcasting. He and his media company, Free Speech Systems, not gonna lie, that's actually a pretty nice name for a company, are seeking court approval for a new contract that would pay him 1.5 million a year plus incentive bonuses up from his current 520,000 a year salary. And just saying, $520,000 a year ain't bad. Now, it is kind of interesting that he has a $520,000 a year salary, but is spending close to $93,000 per month, which basically what I'm guessing is that like a lot of his expenses is being covered by the company itself and not necessarily from his income from the company. But again, also like he owns the company. So it's all his money, basically. Let's see. The company also filed for bankruptcy protection last year. On InfoWars, Jones said Tuesday that he is more than $1 million in debt. If he gets the salary increase, he said he would be left with about $300,000 a year after paying his legal bills. With all my expenses and things, that's nothing, he said. And I don't care about that. I'm wearing a shirt I bought like 8 years ago, and I love it to death. Financial documents filed by Jones and his bankruptcy lawyers say his personal net worth is around 14 million, which by the way, like personally, I think he probably has like way more money than this. Like with how big Alex Jones has been for how many years with the types of products that he sold, I'm thinking that, like, truly speaking, in terms of like how much money he actually has with all of his businesses, etc., crypto, whatever, I'm thinking probably multiple nine figures, in my opinion, right? But that's just like my opinion. Because like if you're someone that is able to like garner so much attention, like this guy is still making millions upon millions of dollars per month in terms of like his company, and he's not allowed on social media like at all. Like, do you realize how hard that actually is to do? Especially with like a news company, basically. So his assets include a home worth 2.6 million, a 2.2 million dollar ranch, a 1.8 million dollar lake house, a $500,000 rental property, and four vehicles and two boats worth more than $330,000 in total. Yeah, for sure, this guy likes property, and he is probably a good amount of money on property taxes. With like, hold on, let's see. So 2,600,000 plus 2,200,000 plus 1,800,000 plus 500,000 in a rental property. I'm not including the cars. So let's see. So that's he owns $7,100,000 in real estate. Wow, that is pretty darn good. Jones had nearly $800,000 in his bank accounts on July 31st. Court documents show. Which, by the way, I'm not gonna lie, wouldn't it be nice to just like look inside your bank account and see like 800 G's just sitting there? Free Speech Systems, meanwhile, continues to rake in cash from the sale of nutritional supplements, survival supplies, and other merchandise that Jones hawks on InfoWars, bringing in nearly 2.5 million in revenue in July alone, according to Jones' financial reports, which he signed under penalty of perjury. And the company's expenses totaled about 2.4 million that month. Now that's interesting. Now also this is the interesting thing about like owning a business, right? Because he could literally structure this business to where if you add into like his monthly salary, right? Plus just like general expenses of this company. Like he could really set it up to where he doesn't really ever have to basically pay the family pretty much like ever, right? Because he could just make the expenses of the business to where they're operating in a negative. Like, I don't think people really understand that. Is like he could pretty much just like probably on a flip of the switch be like, you know what, in the next 10, 20 years, I'm just going to be losing money. So I'm going to have to be taking on debt. Like the company's going to have to be taking on debt. So the company cannot pay people at all. Like he could like literally set that up. Interesting. So meanwhile, some of these Sandy Hook families have another pending lawsuit claiming Jones hid millions of dollars in an attempt to protect his wealth. One of Jones' lawyers has called the allegations ridiculous, and Jones, who's appealing the 1.5 billion in lawsuit awards against him, sat for a deposition in his bankruptcy case Tuesday and Wednesday in his hometown of Austin, Texas, where Infowars is based. Oh, I just remembered why they keep doing 1.5 billion. So, for those that don't know, and by the way, I guess like the prosecutor didn't tell the jurors this at all either, but basically, even though he is, I think, like was ordered to pay like the trillions of dollars, because this was like in Texas, there's like a cap, right? So like there's only so much money that he could actually pay. Which, by the way, the 1.5 billion, I don't even think that's the max that he has to pay. Like I think it's actually a lot lower. I think the amount is actually like maybe like a few million dollars or maybe even less than that. So like technically speaking, he doesn't really have to pay much money to, I think, to the families basically at all, because there is a cap to the thing. So unless I'm wrong, but I believe based off my memory, because this was like a while ago, that technically speaking, he doesn't have to pay this huge amount of money based off like the laws in like Texas and whatnot. So on his show Tuesday, he denied financial wrongdoing. I'm not Lex Luthor when it comes to finances in life, he said. I mean, I'm a straight up guy. I'm a do good in Mayberry RFD. Which, by the way, again, to me, the spending seems kind of like outrageous just to me. But like, it's hard for me to just fathom spending that type of money on like personal lifestyle, right? But that being said, like, there's like a podcast that I really like to listen to, which if you stumble upon it, you should listen to it. It's a pretty nice podcast called My First Million. And the hosts of that podcast, like these two hosts, were talking to this individual who was making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars a month. Like, I think they were making like nine figures a month or something like that, like something crazy, right? Like, really high margin business. But like his personal expenses were like in the multiple six figures, I believe. Like personal expenses. Like, I for sure cannot like even fathom that type of spending. Like, what are you spending all that money on? Now, in that person's case, specifically on that podcast, it was about like private jet travel, just because of the convenience, because he had to travel all over the place, and he wanted to see his kids, so he made that a priority. Understandable, but again, that's like a crazy amount of money to be spending per month, right? So it's hard to think about people actually spending that type of money because like you take like a step back and look at yourself and you're like, yeah, I mean like I wouldn't mind spending like an extra like $1,000 per month. I think that would be pretty nice. But it's like, oh no, I want to like now at a point spending close to $100,000 per month on personal expenses, like going out, eating, going on trips, vacations, cars, whatever. Like at a certain point, it's like, what are you spending your money on? Like again, like after a certain point, like how much more can you spend? Let's see some of these comments. And by the way, if you do stumble upon this, like just think about it. If you had $93,000 per month to spend on personal expenses, what would you spend that money on? Let's see. This person says double standard. Jones convicted for exercising his God given U.S. constitutionally protected rights. CNN, Fox, NBC, New York Times, CBS, ABC say whatever they want, and DOJ looks the other way. Let's see. There are no words. Let's see. This person says, I have no use for Alex Jones and his conspiracy theories. Although, funny enough, there's like a meme online about Alex Jones. There's like, oh, like put like $1 in the Alex Jones was right jar, and there's probably like a lot of dollars in there. Let's see. But maybe the people who sued him might get some money from him if they didn't demand 1.5 billion. He has no incentive to pay them anything, and also based off like the laws of the United States, he could technically just set it up in a way where he just never really has to ever pay them anything. Let's see. This person says, "Sorry about Sandy Hook, but I believe you have the right to say and think what you want." That Alex, he knows how to play the system. Yeah, I mean the thing is, he probably has like extremely good lawyers that probably advise him on how to really structure this in a way where he can still live a good life and not really worry about it. They aren't obligated to a single dime. So this person says, I have nothing good to say about him, but the victory was again anti American. The government's job was to protect his right to his asinine opinion, and any person who threatened anyone, they and only they should be charged. His theory at best is disgusting and worthy of a 24/7 middle finger to him, but as stated, the lawsuit victory is anti freedom. Yeah, so like this is the thing that I never really understood about the whole case. Like people were so pissed off at like Alex Jones, right? And put all the blame on Alex Jones, but not really the blame on the person that actually did it or the people that actually harassed the families. Like everything was put onto Alex Jones, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's like so he's responsible for everything that other people do. Like that seems kind of like weird. And again, technically, there is a thing still called free speech in the United States. Now, there have been like former cases where like the like sentencing based off free speech is kind of like weird and kind of like iffy. I mean, there has been like some cases that people got locked up. It's sketchy as hell. But still, like you still try to like believe in free speech, regardless if that speech is wrong or dumb. Ha ha ha, keep living the good life, Alex. Never give them a dime, says Doughboy7. Hmm. Now, like, that's another thing, too. Like, Jones did, like, eventually, like, apologize about the whole Sandy Hook thing and apologized for the Sandy Hook thing for multiple years. Like, basically, to my understanding, is like, he believed one thing, that, like, it was basically a hoax, and then changed his opinion because again this is like it was his opinion, right? And then said sorry about that. Then after that, I think like maybe like a year after he had already apologized for that, then he started to get canceled. Then he started to like be basically blamed for everything, pretty much. But yeah, feel free to give your thoughts. Like the whole point isn't about him and the Sandy Hook thing. It's mainly just like it's interesting that he's able to structure the business in a way to be able to pretty much live a pretty awesome lifestyle without really worrying about paying the legal fees. It's just kind of funny in a way because it just goes to show you it's like, oh, so like could technically anyone do this where like you could just create a business and then structure it in a way that like if the business were to get sued or you were to get sued, you could just like set it up in a way like this to like protect the amount of money coming in, the assets, etc. Because again, like like a person could have like unlimited amounts of businesses, right? And each one of those business he could have like 100% control. Like this is the craziest thing, right? So to put it into like another perspective, like years ago, Zuckerberg was getting praised for like donating all of his money, like all of his income or whatever, from Facebook to charity, right? What people didn't realize is that he basically put all that money into his foundation that he's like 100% owner of, meaning that he has 100% ownership over the money within there that is his money that he put in there. So he got like a tax write off, but then also has complete, utter control over the money in the foundation. It's like the same way that like Bill Gates and all these other billionaires basically set it up. It's like, oh yes, I'm gonna donate all my money because I am just so philanthropic. I just care so much about everyone in the world. Oh, right? Like I have a heart of gold. And then you say that, but at the same time, you just end up basically putting the majority of your money into an entity that is separate from you, meaning it's like it's not you, but you have complete ownership, right? That you could just like control everything about and like behind the scenes kind of stuff. It's like once you get to like a certain net worth, you could pretty much set things up in a way where you're pretty protected from a lot of things, financially speaking. It's just kind of funny when you think about it.